It's your Tuesday daily delivery. I'm Michael Rand. Happy to be back for another day. Hope you guys are as well. Really good show coming up. Star Tribune columnist Chip Scoggins joins me here in just a few minutes. Got him in a bunch of stuff. He'll be over at Williams Arena on Wednesday night to cover Gophers versus Iowa. Star Caitlin Clark will be in the building for the Hawkeyes. That should be tons of fun. Sellout crowd. Talk to Chip about what makes Caitlin Clark so amazing as a player, but also as a phenomenon in college basketball, in women's sports. So we get into that. Got into some Vikings stuff, a little bit of Timberwolves, some Gophers, plenty of ground covered with Chip. So stick around for that here in just a few minutes. A good conversation with him. Got some more Vikings thoughts at the end of the show. Scouting Combine picking up right now. Kevin O'Connell and Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah addressing the media today in sessions at the Combine. Could be some news out of that. Be interesting to hear what they say. I'll probably run some of what they say on tomorrow's show, and you certainly should be paying attention. StarTribune.com. Ben Gessling and Andrew Kramer from the Star Tribune are at the Combine. They will be having plenty of coverage from all of that there, and this could be where some of the Kirk Cousins off-season news, we're only a couple weeks away from the new league year. Some of that will start to filter out. We'll find out, are the Vikings keeping Cousins or moving on? So, don't know if we'll get a definitive answer today, but we might move the ball a few yards, so to speak. So, stick around and pay attention to that as the week goes on. First, though, what I miss, plenty of stuff to talk about with the Twins right now. That's where I want to start. We'll get into even more tomorrow. Phil Miller expected to join me from the Star Tribune to talk about everything going on down in Florida. But a couple big things right now. Byron Buxton making his debut today, or expected to at least, in center field. Hasn't played in center field in about a year and a half. 554 days, I think Phil wrote the other day. So 554 days since Buxton played a game of any sort in center field for the Twins. Having Buxton healthy and available in center field, you can't overstate how important that would be to the Twins this year. Just how much that makes them better. A healthy Buxton. He's become a bit of a punchline, obviously, over the years with all the injuries, everything he's gone through. At the heart of it, though, when he's healthy, he is a tremendous player, a star caliber player. We haven't seen it enough in long enough stretches because of injuries, because of slumps. But when Byron Buxton is healthy and playing well, he is a difference maker. He has the potential to carry a team for weeks at a time. If he can stay healthy this season, that will be a tremendous boon. And today is a big step towards that. Now, in the same breath, Twins needed to get themselves some insurance in case he can't be healthy, or just in case they need extra outfielders. They made a trade on Monday. Manuel Margot coming over from the Dodgers. He had recently been traded from the Rays to the Dodgers. Sounds like the Twins have been pursuing him for quite some time. They like the fact that he's a right-handed hitter. They like his defense. They like his overall ability in the outfield. He's got a hefty salary this year, but all but $4 million of it are being picked up by the Dodgers and Rays, I think, eventually. So not a huge financial burden to the cash-strapped Twins. We've talked a lot about payroll this offseason. Just seems like a solid pickup. Not a big, power hitter by any stretch. I think he had 4 homers last year, but a guy who will put the bat on the ball, will make the plays in the outfield, above average defensively, just a solid major leaguer, the kind of guy that they had a lot of last year, right? Like you think of Michael A. Taylor, they probably could have tried to re-sign Michael A. Taylor, decided to go a different route. Maybe Taylor looking for a little bit more playing time this year, not quite sure why that didn't mesh, because he was awfully good for them last year, really saving them when Buxton couldn't play the outfield. But does seem like they've got their insurance now, and a guy that can play in center when Buxton doesn't play, can play the corner spots against left-handed pitching, things like that. So a good pickup, a good solid pickup. One other thing on it, though. Bobby Nightingale Jr., Star Tribune beat writer, along with Phil Miller, tweeted this out, and I thought this was interesting. In the trade, the Twins traded shortstop Noah Miller, a 2021 draft pick. Now the Twins have traded all 5 of their top 5 picks in the 2021 draft. They have traded each of those players. He gave the rundown here. Traded right-handed pitcher Chase Petty, their number 1 pick, to the Reds in the Sonny Gray deal a couple of years ago. That worked out pretty well for the Twins, although Chase Petty could wind up being a pretty good pitcher for the Reds. Like I just said, they traded Noah Miller to the Dodgers in this Manuel Margot trade. They traded left-handed pitcher Steve Hayar to the Reds for Tyler Mahle. They also traded Christian Encarnacion Strand to the Reds for Tyler Malley. They also traded Spencer Steer to the Reds in that trade. This is not part of this, but they traded him to the Reds in the Malley trade. Both Encarnacion Strand and Spencer Steer had very good seasons last year for the Reds, so that one could haunt them for a while. And they traded right-handed pitcher Cade Povich to the Orioles for Jorge Lopez. So the top five players they picked in the 2021 draft have all been traded out in 4 separate deals. I don't know if this is more than a fluke or anything else. I don't think this means that their minor league system is bereft of talent, but it is interesting to think about that they basically the 2020 draft was extremely limited because of COVID. Then you got the 2021 draft where you don't have a lot of players, the top end players that you used to have. I wonder if there will be any sort of repercussions in the pipeline down the road. I wouldn't imagine there would be. They've obviously made trades for other teams, players from drafts, things like that. I'm not worried about it. More of a curiosity piece than anything that I thought I would share with you right now. Before Chip, let's get to a little soccer too. The Loons, Minnesota United, officially naming Eric Ramsey their head coach. This happened yesterday. Now, over the weekend, they debuted with their interim coach, Cameron Knowles, and looked awfully good. They beat Austin 2-1. It was 2-0 until Austin got a goal very late. The Loons controlling play for almost the entire game, pressing up high, things like that. You would have to imagine this is the style they will continue to play under Eric Ramsey. They wouldn't have brought in a coach and then ripped everything up that they've been working on in training for months and months and months. I'm sure this is part of a seamless plan. This is how they want to play. This is how their new management wants to play, things like that. But it was interesting to see them play so well. A lot of Loons fans that are much more soccer experts than I am saying, wow, this was a much different style of play, a much different result than they're used to seeing. They just really took it to Austin on Saturday in that 2-1 win. So we'll see how soon Eric Ramsey debuts. 32 years old, the youngest coach in Major League Soccer, coming over as an assistant from Manchester United. It'll be an interesting transition. Interesting to see how this all fits together. Not the ideal circumstance for hiring a coach, but the ideal circumstance, at least for the result at the start of the year for the Loons, and we'll see where they go from here.
Grand Casino would like to take a moment and salute the true football fan. The passion, the hope, the anticipation, that incomparable feeling of winning. Grand Casino would also like to take a moment to remind you that you can find all that anticipation, thrill, and winning at Grand Casino. Grand Casino, let your story begin.
Let's bring in Star Tribune columnist Chip Scoggins right now on a bunch of different things, including Vikings, some Gopher hoops, a little bit of Wolves. Wolves back in action on Tuesday. Scouting combine this week, a lot of intrigue for the Vikings. But Chip, the big story locally this week is going to be Caitlin Clark at Williams Arena on Wednesday. The game has been sold out for months. At one point it looked like it would be maybe a more competitive game, and it still could have been. The Gopher women have been struggling mightily since Mara Braun's injury, but the show is still Caitlin Clark. She would need 51 to break the Maravich record. Don't think that's going to happen, but let's not rule it out. She is just such a special player. As you prepare to cover this and kind of be there for that, what are you kind of like in the lead up to it? What are you realizing, learning, and kind of thinking about Caitlin Clark and just this phenomenon?
Yeah, it is a phenomenon, and you look at the attendance figures of her home games, but more so the road games. I mean, she's selling out every road venue, and so, which is just phenomenal for women's sports and the attention that she brings to that sport. And I'm sure there are people that and we saw a little bit of this last year with the fallout with her and Angel Reese in the title game and the kind of back and forth that went on, that she can be a polarizing figure, the way she plays, the way some of her histrionics. But man, when you set aside all that and all the comparisons that we're hearing now and just watch her play, it's unlike anything I think we've seen. She crosses half court looking to score, and its logo three-pointers are just like any other three-pointer for her. and just the flair that she brings, the competitiveness. It is a phenomena that we're seeing, and it's great for women's basketball, and if it attracts more viewers, gives young girls who are watching her something to strive and aspire to be. I think it's all positive.
Is it just that she's that much better than everyone else? Because I feel like there's been star players. What about her resonates in particular? Like, is she just that much better? Because you watch her and you're like, okay, she probably is that much better, but it's got to be more than that.
Well, I think it's a couple things. I think it's her style of play. Yes,
Yeah.
she's that much better, but just the creativity, the shot making, the distance that she shoots on threes, all those things are just she has this wow factor about the way she plays, in the way that Steph Curry brought that wow factor into the way he shot the ball. But I also think it's when you look at women's sports now, with the growth of it, and when I say growth, I mean TV executives wanting to put it on the games on TV. Volleyball, women's basketball, we're seeing it here locally with women's professional hockey that has come into our market, and they're getting 10,000+ fans for home games on weekends. I think I think people are realizing there is such a, and I'm talking about TV executives.
Yeah.
This is an inflection point for women's sports, the growth of it. You think about how popular women's volleyball has been in college, and now we're seeing more of that than ever. Big Ten Network, I mean, how dominant. I mean, that's one of the, to me, like a women's college volleyball game, just the action packed, and it's always, it's fast paced, and how athletic the players are and how hard they hit it, and just so I think you're seeing a growth in all women's sports, and she's come along and Caitlin's come along at this moment and plays a game that we haven't seen, a style that like I said, the creativity and shot making that's just so unique. I think I think that's part of it, but and some of it probably is too her personality and how she's, she can be, what's the word? I don't know. Cocky is the right word, but just the cocky, the brashness,
a little brash, a little confidence. And I love that. Certainly confident.
And confidence. And so I think it's all those things that are contributed to it. But I think more than anything, just from pure basketball standpoint, just the way she plays. I mean, you just don't see this.
I think you're right about just the inflection point of women's sports, and kind of where, just grouping it all together maybe isn't even fair, but just like collectively, there's this kind of swell where it's important to, in a certain realm, to break into mainstream, right? To be in a place where people are just kind of, where casual sports fans are talking about a thing. And I think that's when you see a team really take off, where you see a sport really take off, is like, have they gone beyond just the people who are really, really passionate about it? You got to have those people. Those people are essential, but you also have to have the casual fans. And then maybe that's where Caitlin Clark, like, people can latch onto that. That is a thing that they can latch onto, just like so many other things in the world of women's sports, but particularly her right now.
Well, and I think it's when you look at TV viewer numbers, and we're just seeing more women's sports on TV now than we ever have. Sponsorships. You think about Caitlin and Paige Beckers and some of these high-profile, Angel Reese, some of these high-profile college athletes that we're seeing get NIL deals. And not just local ones. I'm talking about Gatorade, Nike, State Farm, national brands are attaching themselves to these women athletes. And so that's a new, frontier that we haven't seen before. So I feel like all these things are kind of combining. And you look at the women's Final Four with the number of sponsorships they have, and the record, the attendance and TV ratings keep going up and up and up. So I think people are realizing there's this opportunity there. And it's great to see, and it's great that more people are realizing and paying attention to just how great these athletes are, and how really good at basketball or volleyball or whatever hockey the sport is. And so it's cool to see, and I think Caitlin's become kind of, I don't want to say face of that, but she's definitely stepped into this moment, and the way she plays and chasing these records. Anytime there's records being broken, that's obviously going to, call attention to itself. So it's a really impactful, cool moment.
What do you think? What do you think Williams Arena is going to be like? We haven't seen it all that full
Yeah,
lately.
it's gonna be pro Iowa. That's what it's gonna be.
It's going to be pro Iowa, yes.
I mean, and they, that program, they obviously travel well, and with what she's doing, and it's disappointing that Mara's bronze injury, as you mentioned, they're just not the same team. I was there
No.
last week to watch them play, and to take someone who's what she does for that team and what she means for that team and take her out of the lineup, it's just they just don't have the firepower now to compete. And so it'll be pro Iowa. It'll be loud. It'll be fun to see. I mean, if you've seen some of these stops before, Rutgers, Maryland. I mean, we're talking about sellouts, and people are lining up, hours before the game to get in to see the Caitlin show. It's just something we haven't experienced before in women's sports, and so I'm excited to be there and get to write about it and soak it up. And I hope it is kind of lives up to the hype that we, because like you say, it's been sold out for several months now, and I think King Upler Collie had the Big Ten women's tournament sold out.
Yeah, and that'll be here in 2 weeks. She'll be back in 2 weeks after that, so it'll be
So it's a cool thing.
It is. Basketball wise, at least locally, the men's team is the bigger story certainly right now. They lost Sunday at Nebraska. Didn't particularly shoot the ball well. You could maybe see that coming because they'd had a bunch of hot shooting games in a row. It was like, okay, are they really that good of a shooting team? But still 8-8 in the Big Ten. Some opportunities here, like the 2 home games they have are winnable. They kind of need to win those. Probably got to get at least one of these road games and then do something in the Big Ten tournament. If we're talking about NCAAs, it's already been a season that has been a rebound season. They've been much better than people predicted. They were predicted to finish last in the Big Ten. They've been at least to be in this conversation of postseason play, certainly better than what we expected. But do you see this in them? Do they have this in them, and how important is that at this point?
Yeah, I think it's still a long shot. I mean, they have to win the 2 home games.
Yeah.
Their non-conference schedule is just so weak that you have to overcome that. So they're probably, they need to get to 21, 22 games wins, which means you got to win 2 in the tournament. You play at Illinois. That's going to be obviously an awfully tough challenge there. So need to win the 2 home games. Probably need to win 2 games in the non-conference or in the conference tournament. I like this team. I like their chemistry and kind of the spirit they play with. They're still not. They have those moments where offensively it kind of just they lose themselves a little bit. We saw that at Nebraska. That was just a really poor effort offensively all the way around. Nobody shot the ball well. Give Nebraska credit. They're better than I thought. Their defense is good. I think they got the Gophers just all discombobulated on offense. I mean, even they were missing open shots where I just think Nebraska just took them out of everything they wanted to do. So, but if you take the kind of the global 30,000-foot view, I mean, what Ben's done this year is in terms of, putting together a nucleus of players that feels right. The development of Christie and even more so Pharrell Payne, I think, has really taken a big step inside. I like the improvement he's shown. And so, it comes back to if they all come back. This is kind of this qualifier that we have to say if they all come back, and I think they all can, at least their main nucleus, even Dawson Garcia. If they can keep that group together, and then you add Isaac Osama, the point guard from Cherry, that would feel like a tournament nucleus to me. But you just can't have what Ben's gone through. Basically, all 3 seasons that he's been here, it's felt like a new team because of the transfer portal. So I would love to see what would happen if you could keep players, here and then bring in the guys and supplement it and maybe add 1 or 2 transfer portal guys and not so many that you're relying on. But this has been a really good step forward for the program. Obviously, Ben needed it.
Yeah.
It was very much, I think, hot seat for him coming into this, that this program had to take a step forward, and they've done that. And so let's see if they can finish strong here. And, I don't know if they can get to the tournament, but if you can double up your win total from last year, I think that'd be a huge, huge step forward.
Not going to get any easier because now it looks like the NIL rules they got
Yeah.
a ruling over the weekend. Basically, it's like, hey, yeah, you can kind of use it to recruit. You can kind of do what you want with it. The
Do
NCAA
whatever
can't
you
step
want.
in. Do what you want.
whatever
This
you
is out
want.
of our
Yeah.
hands. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and that's it. I mean, it's yes, the coaches, when you factor in who stays and who doesn't, coaching, the vibe around the program and winning, all that's part of it, but so is NIL. We saw it, Dinkytown athletes step up with the football program, with Darius
Yep.
Taylor specifically. They're going to have to do that again. I got to imagine Christie would be attractive to some team that wants a shooter. You mean, I'm sure he had opportunities coming out of high school, and he chose to come here. So it's interesting if you spent time around the team and you see him. There's a good vibe about him. I
Yeah.
feel like there's a strong connection. Now that doesn't guarantee no one's going to leave, but I think if you looked at it and you look at kind of this chemistry that they have and this brotherhood and this kind of the spirit they have, and you feel like they're moving in the right direction. Obviously, with the wins they're getting, that's a good foundation. That's a good foundation to build upon. So, will that entice everybody to stay here? I have no idea because the NILs when some of these schools are throwing hundreds of thousands of dollars at
Yeah.
athletes to leave, that's awfully tempting. I don't know. I can't even imagine that world. It's just so
Right.
different now. So it'll be interesting. But if they all come back, I think they'll really be starting next year in a good place.
Yeah, I agree with that. Couple more things. The Wolves, I wrote about this Monday. I feel like we keep finding new things to worry about with the Wolves. They're 40-17. Like think about like
Yeah.
10 years ago when things were just miserable. You were worried about them even finding like three decent players to put on the court at one time. Now they've got like this, best record in the West, this foundation of, hey, but we're all looking at like, oh, but what if they have to play the Lakers or the Warriors in the first round? How deep are they going to go? Like, what can they stay healthy? Ant's late game decision making, is Jaden really having that good of a year? Naz Reid,
Yeah.
like it's we as humans we are predisposed to find new problems once we have established a new normal. The new normal for the Timberwolves is that they're very good, and so now we have new problems with this team.
Well, I think as Minnesotans, we're
As Minnesotans and human beings, yes, absolutely.
Yes. We're so used to worst case scenario
Yes.
that when you and specifically with this organization, which is historically we all know how bad it's been. When you see glimmers of hope and you see like, hey, this team's actually really good and they have something here, and you keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I know it's cliche, but you sort of do. It's still for this team. I like how they're constructed. I like defensively. I like the way what Gobert, like the improvement he has made this year and being the defensive force that they thought. I think that's been a real game changer. But even was it recently as a couple games ago where Chris Finch, they had a stinker. I can't remember what was it, the third quarter or something.
Against Milwaukee, they
where he said he goes back to our maturity.
Yeah,
he goes back to our maturity or something. It's like at some point we got to stop talking about the maturity of this team, right? But I don't think we will until they prove it in the playoffs.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, that's. I mean, we there's enough evidence here. This regular season, we're like, this is a good team. Like this is a team that when they play at their peak and they're they just have a lot of defensive prowess. I mean, Ant can Cat, but it's all they have to show it in the playoffs. That's what this is about, and so. This team was not built to just squeak into the playoffs and maybe win a series. I mean, this is a team that they think should be in the Western Conference Finals. And so, to me, isn't that how this is going to be judged? Like what happens in the postseason?
It is, and I'm fascinated. I can't decide for myself yet what I will consider success ultimately. Like let's say like nothing catastrophic happens. It's just like they kind of carry this to the finish line. They're one of the top 3 seeds in the West. then what is a minimum that needs to happen to feel like, okay, that was good enough? Then I feel like let's keep this together and build on that.
Don't you feel like Western Conference Finals or one step below that?
Yeah, I don't. That's what I don't know. I'm like I've
Well,
been. It's hard because the West is so good. There's a lot of good teams. Like you could. I think a first round loss would be
that
that's
would be
you, you
that's
you
a
can't
huge
have that.
disappointment.
You
That's
can't
a huge, yeah.
like the baseline is I know that's not enough. Like you can't just
No,
get to the playoffs and lose. Even if you say, "Oh, it was a competitive series." No, no, no,
no,
no.
no, no, no,
You're
no,
beyond
no.
that. You'd have home court. You'd be playing a team that's not as good as you, even if it is a team that, has some veteran
Pedigree.
stars.
Yeah.
That second series though could be tricky. Like say you're the 2 seed and then you're playing the 3 and it's like Denver or somebody like that or the
Yeah.
Clippers. Like then I could kind of give you a sliding scale. I could be like, okay, if you lost in 7 and it was
Well,
like,
that's
oh
it. Yeah,
man,
yeah.
like
How does it look? How does it look? Yeah.
it's how does it look? Getting to I know what success is. Success is definitely getting at least to the Western Conference Finals. What I don't quite know yet for myself is how will I still feel okay about this if it comes up short of that?
Well, it would depend on how it looks, but you have to remember too, like with the money that they're spending and going over, into the luxury tax, this is not, I mean, to justify keeping this core together and being willing to pay that tax, it can't be, we got in the playoffs or we won a
Right.
first. I mean, to me, it's like you have to show legitimately like you're a contender,
Yes.
right? I would think of it as an ownership. If I'm paying that kind of money in that tax, I want to feel like this is a legitimate contender. And
Yeah.
so, what does that look like in the postseason? I guess we'll see. I mean, the optics are going to tell us, but you're right. Yeah, it can't be just get in the playoffs and lose first round.
No.
Like that's going to be a
No.
major, major
No.
disappointment.
It's got to be something more than that, but
Yeah,
I don't know.
yeah.
I haven't decided for myself what that is yet, how I feel. I mean, I think you're right. Maybe some of it will be the eye test.
Royal Credit Union's smart checking accounts offer no monthly fees and no minimum balance. Enjoy financial freedom when you open your Royal Credit Union smart checking account online at rcu.org/go checking. Insured by NCUA.
Really quick, it's NFL scouting combine week. You told me before we started recording, I haven't seen it yet, but there's a Kirk Cousins video. He's out there on a tennis court. He's throwing the football over those mountains like Uncle Rico. Everything's going to be all right. That's no coincidence, right? He wants to make sure everybody knows that he's good to go. The Vikings, I've seen reports that, maybe this is when Cousins negotiations are going to heat up. Like it's kind of go time now. It's only a couple
Yeah.
weeks till the league year. They're going to be looking at all these quarterbacks that they could potentially get. Penix is throwing at the combine. Nix is throwing. McCarthy's throwing. Like this is now we're going to finally start to like the real information is going to start flowing. I think like at the combine now.
Yeah. So you're saying it's not a coincidence that that video posted on the first day of the
No.
scouting combine?
Not a coincidence at all.
Yeah, I mean, and we're going to see more of that because that's what he's telling teams. Look at me. This is how how I'm moving and stuff. And yeah, this is I got to imagine the conversations with his agent and Kwesi in the front office are going to heat up this week. And this is a big week for Kevin O'Connell too, because I would think his evaluation is number one above anyone else when it comes to quarterbacks. Like
Yes.
this is a large part why you hired him. Now, if those 3 that I think they're going to be available for the Vikings are throwing. They'll go to the pro days too and see him there. But I got to imagine he's going to spend a lot of time with these quarterbacks. And he's done that in the past where he's created, when he was just a coordinator or position coach, he did a lot of the prep work on every quarterback coming out in the draft. And I think he's taking pride in just, really diving into that. And so his evaluation and his opinion on these quarterbacks and whether there's a guy there that he falls in love with that they feel like he wants to take in this draft. These are a critical month to 6 weeks for him, right? And just really nailing down, yes, this guy, no, this guy. Here's what I think about what we should do with that position. Independent of what the decision with Cousins is, I think, right? I mean, because you can still bring back Cousins and draft a quarterback if you feel like you fall in love with the guy. So, yep, they're on the clock. I mean, you got to have a decision with Cousins here pretty quickly, I would think.
And if they were in love with one of those guys that they knew they could get, that would put them in a different spot with Cousins negotiations, I would think, right? Like if you don't love any of these guys, and then you're like, okay, well, what's the plan if we don't get Kirk Cousins back? Then it's different. But if you look at I don't know what they think about these guys, but they look at McCarthy, Penix, Nix, whoever, and say, okay, we really like this guy. We think he can be, a top 8 quarterback in this league by the time it's all said and done, and he's going to be at least a good starter on his rookie contract. That's a different feeling going into free agency or this 2-week period than it is to be like, we really only love these like top 3 guys, and there's probably no way we can get any of those guys.
Well, if you feel like that and you're not in love with the, how are you not going to fall in love with Caleb Williams? But
everybody loves those guys. But
yeah.
You can't get those guys.
You can't get those guys. Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you don't fall in love with one of those guys, I think it really puts an onus on you to re-sign Cousins. But they may have a plan where like, let's try to get Cousins for 2 years and still draft that guy because obviously that position is so important, and we're willing to have him watch for a year or two behind Cousins and then move forward. So it feels like there's about 3 or 4 different doors they can walk through here with this.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know what they're, we're not privy to their meetings to know which way they're leaning.
Pretty rude. They should just let us into those meetings.
I don't know why they wouldn't.
Yeah.
I mean,
I keep it to myself mostly.
I would love to write this stuff with the confidence I know what they're doing. So, but I still think, Mike, I still think if Cousins would agree to a 2-year deal, I think that's the way they go. And if they fall in love with one of these guys that are not, the top guys, but you hate to say not a top guy, but he's still a first round. I mean,
right. Not one of those top 3 guys though.
Yeah. But I think they can still draft that guy too.
Yeah. I mean, the calculus of it is such that you could probably talk yourself into pretty easily what Suhan wrote over the weekend, what a lot of us have written already is like, if you're going to pay him all, if you got all this dead money coming to your cap anyway, doesn't it make sense to have him? I still would rather just take the lump this year and just move on. But I can, it's the kind of thing where I can see it reasonably both ways. And it's just fascinating. The timeline of it, when they have to decide things, it's going to heat up this week, I feel like. Well,
to me, the way I would draw the line on 2 years. If Cousins will accept 2 years, I'd do it. If he's insistent on he wants a longer term deal, 3 years, I would move on to Plan B.
Do you do guaranteed money for both those 2 years?
I think
and how much?
Well, he's already set the precedent. That's what he's want. I mean, Daniel Jones makes 40. I can't imagine Kirk Cousins is going to take less than 40.
Yeah,
it's just. I mean, so are you looking at 42 to 45? I mean, I've heard we've seen that number 90 floated. For 2 years.
It's too much. That's too much to me. It's just too much for Kirk Cousins. It is. At this stage of his career.
He's not taking a hometown discount. There's no such thing. It's not going to work. No. I don't think. I mean, because as you know, these contracts all set the bar for the next guy. And it's like there's inherent pressure from, and you want to get paid what you think you're worth.
Yeah. If it's 2 for $90, I'm taking the Sonny Gray approach. I'm like, thank you for your service. Go get paid somewhere else. I don't want that. I don't want that. But
what would you be comfortable with?
80? I don't know. I don't want him in the first place. I'd be comfortable with like 2 for 75. 2 for 75, fully guaranteed.
Yeah, I don't know if that would get it
2
done.
2 for 80 at the most. 2 for 80 at the most. And I still don't. I don't want it. 2 for 90 is just too much. Kirk Cousins he's a good quarterback. He's not a great quarterback.
I don't know if 2 for 75 is going to work.
No, I don't know if it is either. That's what I'm saying. This is my line in the sand. I don't know where their line in the sand is. Like, this is going to be so, like, I love this time of year.
I do too. And here's the other thing to factor before we wrap up. I mean, Kwesi and O'Connell are going into year 3.
Yes.
This is kind of a pivotal year in terms of where this regime is going and what the plan is and what the next 5 years are. And so, are there assurances that if you draft a rookie that there's a little more runway for you, or is there pressure to really bounce back after a disappointing year to get back in the postseason?
Yeah.
Does that factor into the calculus?
It's interesting. And I don't, I'll be interested to know exactly where both of them stand and if they're aligned on that right now. I'm sure there's lots of discussions happening right now. It's fascinating, big time of year. I'm sure we'll cover it plenty on Access Vikings and with both of our writers down there right now getting ready for the combine. So, Chip, appreciate it as always. Have fun covering Caitlin Clark on Wednesday against the Gophers, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, brother. See you, man.
Good stuff from Chip as always, and it leads me right into the cooler. An idle thought I had the other day with Chip. We were just kind of talking. Feels like the Vikings right now are at a point in their trajectory where they remind me an awful lot about the end of days with Zach Parise and Ryan Suter. That's kind of how the Kirk Cousins era has felt to me right now. Let me explain. The Wild during the Parise-Suter era were always good enough to compete for a playoff spot, made the playoffs a bunch of years in a row, and then they kind of got older. Things kind of, not the wheels didn't fall off, but they decided at a certain point that they weren't going to tear it down. They were just going to try to rebuild on the fly, make some roster tweaks, make some adjustments, things like that. And even after cutting ties with Parise and Suter a couple of years ago and just, biting the bullet with the buyouts, they've been relatively competitive. We just don't know yet how competitive they're going to be this year, but they've stayed competitive, but they have not become a Stanley Cup title contender, I would not say, at any time in the last 10 to 12 years, even though they've been a consistent playoff team. That's where the Vikings are right now in their trajectory, and they have to decide about Kirk Cousins. Is this their moment to let go of Cousins? Is this their moment to move on and try to build up to be a championship team at some point, or do they want to be, an 8 to 10 win team in perpetuity? That's fine. If you want to do that, that's fine, but just admit it. Know what you are. You're not a championship team if you keep Kirk Cousins. You are stuck in this okay range that the Wild were stuck in for so long. And if that's what you want to be, that's what you can be. But just let's not make any mistake about it. They are right now what the Wild were for so many years there, a decent team, a team that was probably going to have a chance to make the playoffs year in and year out, but a team that was not a threat beyond that. That's their inflection point right now. They've become the Wild. Are they ready to become something else, or is this what they're going to be for the near term and medium term and even the long term future? We will see. Going to get some answers pretty soon. We'll see what happens at the Combine this week, see what kind of information comes out of there. Follow that, of course, like I said, Star Tribune, StarTribune.com. Until tomorrow, Phil Miller on with me tomorrow to talk Twins. Until then, I'm Michael Rand.